Hello everyone, this is Tim Picciott, host of the Crypto Wealth Show, and today we're going to catch up on a lot of the news that's been going on in the crypto space. I mean, just a ton's been going on since the last time that we've done one of these. And joining me today is co-host and returning champion, Kingsley Edwards. Kingsley has helped pioneer esports betting through Bitcoin. He's been doing that all the way, I believe, since 2013. Had a successful exit from that. And since the last time he joined us, he's actually also created hopefully a Facebook killer or competitor called Flote.app. That's Flote.app. We'll have links down below of how you guys can follow us down there. We also have with us Juan, Galt, who is a crypto OG who runs Be Your Own Vault, where they offer crypto consultations, both for people that are brand new beginners just getting into it, and also for people who are longtime hodlers and need a way to help pass it down to their heirs and make sure that they can do more advanced things and have all the best storage options. But what he's also doing now lately, or what he's up to lately, is he just launched Phone HODL. And what Phone HODL is it's basically it's a parachute for your phone. We've got it up here, right here on the screen right now. And what that is basically if you drop your phone, this is a device to make sure that you don't ruin your $1,000 investment. And I saw a lot of people playing with it over at was it Anarcho Vegas, which was also something that Kingsley Edwards helped put on, and it was actually a pretty big hit. So a lot of people playing with it. So we'll have a link down to that down below as well. And yeah, it's a really cool video, so I recommend you guys check that out. And then another thing that's been going on, and one of the reasons why I haven't been putting out a lot of content, is I wasn't creating a Facebook killer app like Kingsley, but what I was doing is I was coming up with different websites for my crypto IRA business. So if you guys go to thelibertyadvisor.com and scroll down like halfway through the page, you'll see basically you'll see where a spot for crypto IRAs. And then if you guys click on the lead magnet down here, you get the 10 most important factors you should know when investing into a cryptocurrency, and also the top 10 questions people have who are investing into crypto IRAs. Then you'll also see on the far right-hand side is our crypto estate planning. And basically at a high level, what you do is if you've bought into Bitcoin early and you don't want to pay a whole bunch of taxes, you want to legally get out of capital gains taxes, we've got strategies for that. And if you guys sign up for that, we've got the top 10 things you need to know before you sell your crypto. But now that we've gotten done with some of the business side of things and all the plugging, and I'm sure we'll hear about that in the comments, that right now we're going to get into where we picked up since the last time. So right now, Bitcoin is sitting at $10,323, and it is, and time stamping this, it is August 23rd. 2019. So Bitcoin on the week, I know almost a little bit unchanged, up about 1%. Ethereum holding in at 192, up 3%. And then we got Bitcoin Cash has lost 1% at 310. And I guess you guys can go check out the rest yourself. And one of the things I wanted to get into just a tiny bit is one of the probably bigger price pressures that we've seen on the market has actually come from a huge Ponzi scheme that was going on out of China. So if you guys remember the BitConnect scandal, which anyone, I mean, every single person, should have known that BitConnect was a gigantic fraud from the second they talked about it. But this was done in much the same way, where they promised people, hey, get 6 to 18% monthly returns, but all you have to do first is give us some of your Bitcoin, give us some of your Ethereum, give us some of your EOS, and people did. People bought into it, and so they scammed out over 200,000 Bitcoin, 800,000 Ether, and what they are saying here, an unknown amount of EOS as well. And if you guys think about this, there was constant, basically 100-lot sell orders on, I forgot the exchange that they were using, it was either Binance or Bittrex, to help suppress the price, because these guys wanted to they knew that this address was tainted, and they wanted to have a way to be able to offload or shuffle around their Bitcoin, I'm guessing, and Ethereum. And so there was massive price pressure because these guys were holding on to over 2 billion USD worth of Bitcoin, and all the selling was going on, which I forgot what Bitcoin peaked out here around. Maybe you guys can help me out. It was like around like 13,500, 13,000-ish. And to me, I think it's a pretty good sign that Bitcoin is still holding in at 10, given the fact there's been the third largest Ponzi scheme ever. Not only Bitcoin Ponzi scheme, but third largest Ponzi scheme ever. and yet the price is still holding above 10,000. So first off, we'll bring it over to Kingsley. Let us know if I forgot anything from your intro. I mean, obviously there's probably a ton that I forgot, but anything else you want to mention before we get into it, and if you want to then talk about what this means for the Bitcoin price.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just thought of an idea for phone HODL. You should make a Doge version, and then you call it a Doge leash.
I like it.
To come out with a competitor, but
I like it.
But yeah, so the Ponzi scheme, yeah, it really is interesting to see, that the price did hold up. I think we dipped a little bit under 10K briefly, I believe. Honestly, the market, like everything's kind of like been kind of a little bit boring on the crypto news side, and we're gonna get into like the more interesting stuff, I know. But and then we also, I think we also cover this too, how there seems to be a lot of institutional buying or trading at least. And I know like OTC desks are getting really busy and are growing as well. So yeah, I mean, it's actually still been, pretty good price action, positive price action. I still think that, we're in the middle of a bull run here, a longer term bull market. So, and then, yeah, I mean, Ponzi schemes, man, they're just never going to go away. It doesn't matter whether it's crypto or seashells or tulips. It is what it is. So, it's crazy how big this one got actually, but like them all, including the Federal Reserve Ponzi, they all come to an end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, and then Juan, if you wanted to then kind of jump in with anything that I probably forgot from your bio, and just other things that are going on with you, and also what you think that this means for the crypto, how it's still been able to hold up despite this massive Ponzi that was uncovered.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not sure that this is as big a story as it's kind of sounding like. I can't say I've gone into depth into the story, but just looking at the article right now, a few of these guys were arrested, which is kind of a big deal, right? When empty gogs kind of popped in a sense and people started getting arrested, the money didn't instantly start getting dumped. It got stuck, and sometimes laptops get captured by the police and in cases that are this big and so on. So the money might be out there, but that doesn't mean that these guys are going to be able to dump. The other thing is that because they're so big and so centralized, Binance and other big exchanges already have policies of capturing funds like that and then freezing them, right? And so I'm not sure that this is going to be. I mean, there might be some big sellers out there right now, and these guys might be part of it. But I'm not sure this is as big a story as it is. I mean, in a past life, I was a journalist in crypto, and I wrote, maybe 150 articles. And when a journalist writes billions of Bitcoin and Ethereum could flood the market, that's clickbait. That's not a statement of fact. That's speculative clickbait. And yes, it could in theory happen, but that hasn't happened yet. So I don't know. I don't think. I mean, this is exciting. If this happened, it could certainly dip the market for a while. Or no, maybe if not for, I don't know how long, you have to do the math, it would dip it. But right now, I think there's some fundamentals in Bitcoin that are very strong. There's some fundamental shifts in the world economy that are, to me, very bullish about Bitcoin. And I think the price, I think we're the bottom is in. So this doesn't really worry me very much. Not in the midterm. I think in the short term, we could talk about the Bitcoin price in the short term, but in the midterm, not concerned, and certainly not only long term.
And the other thing that's worth mentioning, and something that Juan and I have talked about a little bit offline in regards to secure ways to store your crypto, is using multi-sig. And so what has been uncovered with this Plus token is a lot of the ringleaders. A lot of these were in P2SH format, meaning that they were in multi-signature format. So if you have some of these ringleaders behind bars and they need codes in order to unlock it, I mean, who knows? It might be, for those who don't know what multi-sig is, let's say it's like a nuclear submarine where you need 2 keys in order to have a missile sequence launch, which I think there was some news a while back where it showed one of the government's nuclear codes was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 or some crap like that. So, go leave it to the government to keep us safe. But if you have, let's say you need 5 keys to unlock something and you have 3 ringleaders behind jail, then all of a sudden now those funds could actually become inaccessible, and now could actually be while maybe it was a temporary price boon, then it could be a price boom because now you've just burned another, crap load of Bitcoin that, that you can never get back, at least if these guys remain behind bars. But switching gears here, one
last thing, though, let's remember that, like, there's not, a lot of people, especially from the mainstream, they don't realize that Bitcoin and Ethereum and crypto can be used as money. So there's not really a reason to take, to really dump it necessarily, especially right now. I mean, they're probably bullish on cryptocurrency, and that's why they did something like this.
Well, yeah, you look at this Mark Karpelès, right? He was, he was CEO of the biggest exchange at the time. The Japanese authorities caught him. Big scandal, lawsuits flying left and right. He goes to jail for 3-4 years, something like that. Comes out, he still has his Bitcoin bags. Now he's a multi-millionaire, and he's ripped because he was in jail for 4 years working out. So, crypto rewards risk. It's kind of the current reality, and these guys could just HODL that for a while and be multi-millionaires if they come out of prison, right? So, I think there's not necessarily. There's many ways this could play out if the authorities haven't taken control of these wallets. I'm also looking at one of the addresses right now. Just because an address is P2SH doesn't mean that it's a multi-sig. It may be multi-sig, but if you look like there's a SegWit address, which is a single key address, so to speak, that is also P2SH, as far as I understand. So, but I mean, with this kind of money, it's probably multi-sig. It's just technicality, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, sorry, I just muted myself and was having some trouble there getting unmuted. But yeah, maybe now it's actually good to kind of shift gears right into how the government is once again, going back to their favorite hole here, basically saying that Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and Monero has been linked with fentanyl trafficking. And this is just, I don't want to say, fentanyl is hilarious or anything, but it's just hilarious that they want to, say that it's, virtual currencies that are enabling the use of these drugs when, how did people get on these drugs, to begin with? A lot of times they had their doctors prescribe them opium. And then when their subscriptions ran out, different types of opioids, that now they're, using fentanyl, trying to use heroin. And I'm sure more fentanyl and heroin and illicit drugs are using USD versus using actual Bitcoin. And in most cases, unless you really know what you're doing, it's probably actually much better for you to buy illegal drug. Not that I'm, obviously I can't make recommendations of how you can buy your illegal drugs on here, but I know it would be stupid to do it with Bitcoin because that could somehow be traced back to you if you're not careful, because Bitcoin's only pseudo-anonymous. Maybe with Monero might be a little bit better, but this to me just seems like, more fudding, fear, uncertainty, doubt of trying to, basically have another reason why crypto should be under attack, both at like the legislative level, but there's obviously no way they can ever do anything in terms of trying to, okay, they make Bitcoin illegal. What's that going to do? It's going to make the price skyrocket. And now with Bitcoin that you have, you'll be able to buy even more drugs if that happens.
You're saying that on the libertyadvisor.com, you don't have some sort of article that's like how to buy drugs with Monero on the dark web or something like that? I think
I've got to say, as a financial advisor, I can't make recommendations and past performances and the future returns. But here's a way to buy all of your privately. So no, we're not advocating that. And if anything, you probably want to get rid of your U.S. dollars if you're going to be doing that. And nobody should be doing fentanyl. Or I heard now they have one that's like car fentanyl or something that's supposed to be like 1,000 times stronger than fentanyl. And like if you like basically like sniff it or touches your skin, you can die. And I don't know what.
Talk about it. Yeah, you got to be careful out there.
And this is all things that the war on drugs does as well, because now it then, instead of being able to go down to not, and I'm advocating your local cocaine dealer, but you don't know if something's being laced, or you don't know if something is being cut with something. Whereas if drugs were legalized, I bet you'd have a lot less people overdosing. You have more people are dying as a result of the war on drugs than probably even drugs. And then I think the fact that the drugs are made illegal is how a lot of this. A lot of the problems arise to begin with. I mean, a lot of the drugs were legal, you probably wouldn't have people doing fentanyl, and maybe fentanyl wouldn't even exist. And then there's other conspiracy theories that it's really the Chinese trying to get back at us from, all the opium war stuff that was going on between, England from back in the day, but that's a whole nother can of worms. But I guess, kind of moving along with this topic is another topic we have coming up, and I'm sort of skipping around here, is Bitcoin Cash now has a wallet where it has a cash shuffle feature, which, maybe, Juan, maybe being the more technical guy, can, kind of explain to us what cash shuffles and coin joins are and what that means for the Bitcoin Cash network.
Sure. So there's two types of anonymity. Well, there's about three types of anonymity schemes in crypto that are, quite popular. There's zero knowledge proofs, which is what Zcash does, right? So they have a transparent ledger with a special cryptographic scheme that makes it difficult to track where money goes, so to speak. It's definitely more complicated than that. There's another one, which is Monero's sort of ring signatures or ring signatures, which Monero uses, which grabs a bunch of people and creates a ring of encrypted transaction flows, and you don't know which out of the, let's say, 8 or 10 players actually got the monies. That's kind of like more or less how it works. And then there's something called CoinJoin, which is kind of what Bitcoin uses and what Dash uses, where you have a bunch of unspent outputs, or Bitcoin. You have, let's say, a bunch of Bitcoins on your wallet, and you just separate them into fresh addresses for the same amount each, and then you combine them and move them around with other people's, and you kind of just shuffle them, right? And that's CoinJoin. I'm not exactly sure which one Bitcoin Cash is using. If they're saying that it could be better than Monero, then I'm assuming it would have to be ring signature, which seems to be the strongest kind of encryption or privacy scheme for crypto. Here's the problem. Turning a transparent cryptocurrency into a private cryptocurrency
I think this is
very difficult.
Like a coin join. I think it's not. I think it's
CoinJoin.
CoinJoin version of how they're doing things.
Okay, so CoinJoin is the weakest of them all because you can do statistical analysis on them. It's not cryptographic anonymity, and even if it was comparable to, say, zero knowledge proofs, if you're trying to add anonymity options on top of a cryptocurrency that's by default transparent and public, that's generally not very effective, even with Bitcoin. The reason is that it's not by default, so most users will not go through this. And once you go through this, you can be seen and so on that you went through this anonymity anonymizer. So making a claim that it can be more private than Monero, which is an always default, like an always on privacy, all transactions are private on Monero, is marketing fluff. And it's honestly not terribly surprising from Roger Ver, but we can leave that at that. So I don't buy it. And then there's questions about like how you would transition from transparent addresses to sort of, I guess if they're using CoinJoin, they could be doing that, but it's not going to be better than Monero. I really highly doubt it. Okay.
And and thank you for that technical analysis, because I know a lot of us here don't know all the ins and outs of what's going on when it comes to all the nitty gritty of crypto. But one other thing that is a positive for at least the price of crypto is, here we have an article from Cointelegraph that says Coinbase CEO, that'd be Brian Armstrong, institutions are depositing 200 to 400 million into crypto per week. And so for me, that seems to be, right now we're just at the very, very beginning stages of this, and 2 to 400 million on a market that is relatively illiquid, compared to the more traditional securities markets, could eventually turn into $1 billion a week, or 2 billion, or 3 billion, or now we get some sort of, quantitative easing with more money printing going on, and now it could be even more. And so I see this as a huge, as a huge positive, sort of going along with Bakkt, which we'll talk about a little bit. But, what do you guys think of, Brian Armstrong talking about 2 to 400 million coming into crypto, and where do you guys see those numbers going?
It's not surprising, and especially with the recent market kind of run up. A lot of you just see more and more institutions getting involved, more and more technology companies supporting blockchain or crypto, more of these banks buying into it, more countries buying into it as well. So I think it's only the trend is only gonna go up from here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. We've been talking about this coming for a while. This is great news, very exciting. The Federal Reserve is sort of apparently looking into like creating a new payment network, new payment system, and European sort of I think that the IMF and then some of this European Federal Reserve banks, like they're also looking into it. I think one of them is issuing bonds on top of an Ethereum fork or Ethereum sort of private network. So it's clear that institutions have recognized the values of the technology, right? Like the sort of like being able to use the internet for money is a huge improvement in efficiency and security if you can do it right, compared to what, you know, this sort of paper era financial system that we live in. And you know, we'll definitely be seeing more of that. Which one wins out, and what new sort of security trade-offs are seen by these sort of private crypto networks and so on, you know, whatever they're investing in. Like there's going to be a kind of crypto economic sort of market war, so to speak. I mean, and war is a very big term. It really isn't a war. It's sort of like competition. You know, we'll see, right? It's very exciting.
Yeah, and I think you know, kind of speaking of, you know, paper fluff, we've got Bakkt, that's BAKKT, is going to be launching their physical delivered Bitcoin futures contract in September. So if you guys remember, we had the Chicago Board of Exchange. They launched a Bitcoin futures market which I think actually now they just got out of it or getting out of it. But with what was going on there is that they had a paper settled market. So, okay, you know, you bought X amount of contracts, and then that is settled in the USD value into your account. Whereas what Bakkt is doing, they're going to actually custody the actual crypto. Now, as Juan, obviously from Be Your Own Vault, would say, it's better for you to be your own bank and have your keys and not let the big institutions and big custodians out there do this. But, you know, but, you know, as a financial advisor, I can tell you firsthand, a lot of the retail market, I've got a lot of people who don't care about crypto, who once you start getting into, you know, this is how you hold it, and this is how you have to buy it, and this is how, you know, you get into all, you know, a lot of their eyes just glaze over, especially if, you know, they're over the age of 60. Yeah. And a lot of people even tell me like, hey, Tim, I just want you to do it all for me, or can't we just, you know, buy some sort of stock that has it in it? And so there is a big market demand from this. And I can at least say from like someone that's actually talking to the people that is what's going on. And so with this, I think it's going to be another gigantic thing to happen to crypto. I mean, probably one of the biggest, and you're going to see that 200 to 400 million number, I think, even explode once this, you know, gets up and going. It was supposed to get going back in December, but then they had, you know, I forgot if it was one of the budget delays or some sort of, you know, there was some sort of thing that went on with the budget deal that had to get delayed. And so that there was a temporary government shutdown, and that was the excuse they used back in December, January, not to launch it back then. But now it sounds like they're, you know, they've got their New York State Department of Financial Services license, which you know, I'm sure everyone here is, you know, a big fan of the New York State Department of Financial Services. And just to give a quick little background on the New York State Department of Financial Services for people, what happened with that is you had and I'm struggling to remember the guy's name right now, so I don't know if you guys can help me out with if you happen to remember the guy's name from
Losky?
Yeah,
Ben Losky.
Yeah.
So Ben Losky, what he did is he basically lobbied the Department of Financial Services. He worked there to create all these rules to get a BIT license. And then once he established the BIT license in New York, everyone basically in that department and his underlings basically all quit their jobs and then became consultants and lawyers to then help get around the rule that he then created. And it cost about, I think it cost about like $100,000 all said and done to basically get a BIT license in New York. So it's just absolutely ridiculous. And that's why, you know, guys like Eric Voorhees with his Shapeshift, it says, you know, we do business anywhere except for North Korea and New York. And which is funny because I was using Shapeshift at a client event in New York, and I was trying to move from, I forgot whatever I was using, like Dash to something else, and I couldn't get it to work in the live demo. I'm like, oh, wait, I'm in New York, and Shapeshift is disabled in New York. So I guess true to form, it was disabled in New York and North Korea. But with this Bakkt, I think this is going to be absolutely one of the biggest things, you know, that has come. Not that you obviously should be holding on to your own keys, but now this will be a way where institutions can not have to worry about holding on to their keys, because, you know, it's a lot for an institution to be like, okay, well, you know, we trust these three guys with the keys, and if, you know, something happens to them or they die or someone messes something up, you know, a lot of these big funds just can't be like, whoops, you know, sorry guys, just lost like $300 million for you. So, I mean, do you guys think that Bakkt is, you know, kind of all it's cracked up to be, or that it's going to be, you know, a big market driver, or do you think it's more hype than anything?
I mean, it seems like it'll provide, you know, some liquidity. I think potentially the price, a lot of people, you know, don't realize that like a lot of people buy on the news, so the price might already be factored in as far as Bitcoin price, today or last several months.
So buy the rumor, sell the fact. So everybody already knows about it. And so sort of like with the Federal Reserve, everybody knew they were going to cut rates, and then when they finally cut rates, the market sold off because it was already priced.
So a lot of times, people don't, I guess, attribute that to like or talk about that when it comes to like crypto, but yeah. And just one thing about that Ben Losky guy, I forget if you were around then, but when it happened, it was just like complete clockwork as far as, the revolving door of seeing government and banks and just the corruption that's involved with that. It was almost as predictable as Epstein, offing himself in prison. But anyway,
or not offing himself and somebody else offing it, or even actually dead. I mean, who knows what's going on?
Getting suicided.
Which I think is actually one of the top trending things on Flote.app. So Flote.app, one of the top trending, at least on mine, was Jeffrey Epstein. Last time that I logged into it, that's kind of funny. But speaking of these big institutions, another big institution that and I'm sure everyone on here is not a big fan of, but it is Goldman Sachs. And Goldman Sachs is bullish and saying that they've got a $14,000 short-term price target. I'm trying to scroll down right now to see if I can see when their target is for. But anyways, when you've got Goldman Sachs, who knows? Maybe that was them trying to sell into all this. Like hey, it's going up to 14,000, so we need to dump.
We already went 14,000. We already hit it.
Well, what they're saying on the short term. So this came out August 12th, and actually, I think right around the time that they launched, right around the time they said they came up with this target is right around the time Bitcoin started going down, because I think that also coincided with that plus token Ponzi scheme that we'd alluded to earlier. But I mean, just the fact that you have Goldman Sachs now being forced to comment on Bitcoin, I think just shows where we're at in the grand scheme of things. And also showing where we're at in the grand scheme of things is you have Walmart is trying to patent its own Libra like digital currency. So I believe it's going to be basically sort of like a Walmart stable coin. And I know that they've done some things in the past where they've had different supply chain work where they were forcing all the like produce suppliers to get on the blockchain. And I know somebody who is a produce supplier to Walmart, and they were confirming this, where basically, let's say you have they've had all these big, different outbreaks. A lot of them actually happened, probably about a couple hours south of me in Yuma, Arizona, where you'd have, a massive outbreak, and then they just have to get rid of all of the produce or all the, meat or something nationwide, as opposed to through the blockchain within maybe a matter of minutes. They could say, okay, we know that this head of lettuce was contaminated from this field, and then we can then these heads of lettuce were then shipped out to these stores, and then we can then eradicate just that little bit instead of having to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But now it sounds like they're trying to get into the digital currency on themselves. And I know even guys like my father-in-law, whenever I brought up crypto, he was always, he couldn't get out of that conversation fast enough. I mean, he's a Hillary guy, and he'd probably rather talk to me about Hillary versus Trump, which is the last thing he wants to do. But it wasn't until he read an article about Walmart and how they were using the blockchain for produce that all of a sudden he started, asking me a whole bunch of questions and couldn't ask me enough. So it does, for that person that's not in the crypto, I think it does give it some legitimacy. But do you guys know anything about the Walmart coin that they were talking about?
I mean, I've been hearing about the supply chain blockchain stuff for a bit, but no, I have not heard. I mean, if they're trying to do something like Facebook, then I guess we can just follow that model.
Do you know if they're because wasn't Facebook was using, they're almost like creating their own like private SDR. I don't think does that article cover whether they're going to be using other currencies or probably just USD.
This one made it sound like it was going to be just USD, because I mean, I'm not 100% sure yet, because I don't think they've actually announced it. But yeah, I mean, the Libra is more like the special drawing right, which I can link a video below where I actually predicted that they would model after the SDR the day before their white paper came out. And the video was actually called, is Libra the new SDR? And that was just my speculation. And but what the special drawing right is the Bank of International Settlements has and you guys queued me up great for this because I've got a Bank of International Settlements article after this. But the Bank of International Settlements is the central bank for all the central banks. It's privately owned by the other central banks. It literally is its own sort of like the Vatican. It says in like Washington, it's its own country within Switzerland, and I think it's like near like Zurich, Switzerland. It's its own country, and so that way no one can audit it, no one can bust in there to do anything, and it's and what they act as the central banks for these central banks, and their unit of account of how they trade between each other is something called the special drawing right. We're just off the top of my head, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's like 50% dollar, like 20% euro, 10% yuan, like 10% yen, and I think a little bit of the British pound, and maybe one or two other currencies sprinkled in there as well. And that's very much what the Libra is going to be based off of. But pretty much the last 3 crypto shows I've done, it's mainly been focused on Libra. So, I don't want to give Facebook too much more plugging over here, because I recommend you guys go on Flote.app as opposed to using the enemy over there in
Facebook.
Did
yeah.
did the SDR does it have precious metals behind it too? I forget.
The SDR or the
SDR.
Walmart coin? I don't believe the SDR has any precious metals backing it. That was an idea that was floated around for Libra, but whatever. But then imagine what the power Libra will have is, let's say they get a couple $1 trillion in there, and all of a sudden now they want to say, okay, well, instead of being 50% dollar, we're going to be 35% dollar, and now all of a sudden you have a massive flood. So then you have Facebook then being more powerful than like the Federal Reserve or Bank of International Settlements, and their effect would be even more than the bank, because they're holding it 1-to-1, whereas the banks are leveraged on average probably about 10-to-1.
Well, they're holding it 1-to-1 for now. Like there wouldn't be anything that could stop them from doing fractional reserve Libra coin if they wanted.
They're not set up as a bank right now, so
right.
How getting around that. But yeah, I mean, obviously they're like, oh yeah, and trust us, we're not gonna take your data and use it against you, and we're actually pledging that we have no intentions. Well, no intentions and legally saying you're not going to do it are two separate things. So it's not like they think that we're a bunch of idiots over here that we don't can't see through all their legalese. But switching gears to
But hang on before you switch gears to the next topic. I just wanted to comment on the Bakkt situation real quick, which is sort of kind of in the same vein of this institutional moves that we're seeing. Yeah, for sure. Like the question is not so much as, who should hold the keys. It's more like, what risks are you willing to take? I think with Bakkt, it's going to be an institutional big player. Bakkt is being founded and created by the heads of the New York Stock Exchange. So these are people that are masters at the trade, and they will definitely they should be bringing high level of, top-notch infrastructure to the game. And it's going to be custodial. It's going to bring a lot of people that are not going to be comfortable holding their own keys right now, and they're going to be more comfortable taking, institutional risk, right? So they might be insured and so on, but I'm sure that the banks in Cyprus were insured, and the clients in those banks were insured, and then the government was like, okay, we're gonna cut them by 40% type of thing, or do a bail-in or something like that. Can that happen in the United States anytime soon?
They can take your money back.
Yeah, they can reverse money. They're certainly going to be telling you where you can send your money, where you can't, what you can buy with it and what you can't buy with it. If you're selling CBD oil or some other sort of, maybe not exactly
gray area,
white market, not exactly black market, gray area, of which there's a growing amount of gray area marketplace sort of businesses. Then they might not be able to trade with you or let you have an account with them or let you move in them. So, it's the same. It's going to be a Bitcoin bank essentially, and so to speak, right? And so I mean, it really depends what risks you're willing to take. I think people should definitely educate themselves on how to store their own coins if they care. And if they care, then that's the kind of thing that we're helping people do, is educate themselves on how to store and keep their Bitcoin safe. But I don't have any illusions about the majority of people being quite comfortable taking sort of institutional risk and then just going with something like Bakkt. Our hope is that we can maintain this sort of path where if they want to walk out of those walled gardens, they can do so. Yeah, so you can take it away from there if you want.
Yeah, no, I think Bakkt, it is going to help onboard a lot of these big institutions, and there's going to be risk, and yeah, it's backed by the Intercontinental Exchange, or ICE, and ICE owns the New York Stock Exchange, so it's big major players, and I believe ICE is actually owned by a German company, so you've got the New York Stock Exchange owned by German companies, so that's just great. So what we also have here is Bank of International Settlements warns of diminishing returns of monetary policy. And basically what this article goes down to say is that, sort of like a drug addict, if you start, taking let's say you start taking heroin, and all of a sudden now you need more and more and more. And then maybe now you go to fentanyl, and then now, you take so much fentanyl that now you risk dying. That's basically what these central banks are doing, is by flooding more and more stimulus, it takes more and more debt to then get $1 of GDP. And actually it takes more than $1 of debt to get $1 of GDP. So, unless you're a business like Amazon that, keeps going up in value, even though basically if absent their CIA cloud contract, they wouldn't even be making any money. It's just eventually there's a certain limit as to how much money you can print. And even the Bank of International Settlements, who is, like the head of the beast over here, they're talking about how, it's sort of running its course. And what's going on at the same time, you've got, and thank you, Juan, for this tweet. We've got a tweet from Donald Trump that says, let me just pull it up here on the screen. So just a second over here. So on the screen, it says, this is Donald Trump from this morning. My only question is, who is our bigger enemy? Jay Powell, that'd be the Federal Reserve Chairman, or Chairman Z, and that would be, or like as Jeff Baruch would say, the crime minister I guess it'd be the dictator of China, Z. And what is basically Trump calling for? He's calling for more money printing. He's calling for rates to go back down, down to 1%, which is what Alan Greenspan lowered them to after the dot-com bubble. And why is this having to happen during the so-called greatest economy in the history of the world? I predicted this in my first podcast I ever made, that, listen, if there's 1,000 things that need to be done and Trump does 999 but doesn't take care of the Fed, I don't care, because that's the only thing that really matters, because everything else is attacking a symptom. And what he do the whole time that he was running for president, he was saying, hey, criticizing the Federal Reserve, saying we need to audit it. It's so important that that an audit gets done, and they're only keeping rates low to help out Hillary and the Democrats. But then he gets in there, and instead of having a principled approach like Dr. Ron Paul, shout out to Ron Paul, happy birthday from a few days ago, but he gets in there, and then he's got no principle, and his thing is, hey, I just need to boost the stock market, and these guys at the Federal Reserve are killing me over here. And literally the first podcast predicted all this, and then said, hey, what's going to go on is he's going to do things good relative to Hillary. That all that good stuff is then going to probably lead to him, making all these boastful claims, which will make things go up even more. And then the Fed's going to lose the excuse to not cut rates, because there was all crap going on underneath Obama. And so rates were only raised one time because they had to, because they were basically lying so much underneath Obama. And this is something that I blame Donald Trump's big mouth for getting us into the situation. Because if you have the greatest economy ever in the history of the world, then why can't you raise rates a little bit here and there? And so by saying we need to keep rates low, yet we're the greatest economy ever, I mean, something there doesn't jive. And to me, the bigger enemy actually is Jerome Powell than Chairman Z, because the Federal Reserve has more of a direct impact on the worldwide economy than I'd say China does. And what's also interesting is that President Trump called China currency manipulators, which, obviously every central bank manipulates their currency. But one thing that's funny is what China was doing is they were stepping in to buy their yuan to keep it stronger than it would be otherwise. And part of what Trump was trying to do is have these tariffs hurt China, which should then hurt their currency. But yet China was coming in, stepping in and buying their currency, aka manipulating their currency higher. So when they stopped buying their currency, aka when they stopped manipulating their currency, is when they got labeled a currency manipulator. And so it's sort of like this really, which is a story not a lot of people have really picked up on, that it was once China stopped technically manipulating their currency. And then Trump's like, we need to lower interest rates and print more money. Well, what do you think that's doing? That's manipulating the currency. So, I mean, would you guys say the Federal Reserve is a bigger threat than China right now?
Yeah, I think it always is, and always, will be, as long as it exists. And also, I don't like it. It's a little strange to me that every country has a central bank. I mean, it makes sense, from like an authoritarian view, why a country obviously would have like a federal or a central bank. But I think a lot of these central banks behind the scenes, they act in concert, and it's a lot of maybe just kind of show what we see. But I do appreciate Trump in some circumstances. Even if I disagree with him on a lot of his policy. It is kind of just funny seeing how he does interact, on Twitter and online, and just in the media in general. And like what we're seeing on Twitter, it's just transparent, because with every other president before, these types of conversations were happening, or maybe it's already set. It's probably already set in stone anyway. So who knows what's worth showing, what's not, especially with Trump. He's definitely, he tries to lead the show, but yeah, Federal Reserve, not good.
Yeah, well, speaking of not good, and this was an article that I know, Juan took a liking to, was that lost within the rate cut, the Fed's drive to establish a new payment system. And basically, I think that this is the story of the Federal Reserve, or story of blockchain impacting the traditional banking system. Because if they realize, oh, hey, you've got crypto where it trades 24/7, near instantaneously, costs next to nothing. Eventually, why are people going to keep using this Federal Reserve system or the SWIFT system that takes maybe $30 to send a wire, and it might take 3 days or takes a week, and then you got all sorts of KYC and whether it even gets to you, and if you're some poor guy over in Africa or Mexico that needs to go send your money back home, then all of a sudden a huge percentage of it needs to get wrapped up. And I think they realize that that basically that their chickens are coming home to roost, and they've got to basically have some sort of at least have the technology to be able to keep up with what crypto is doing. And so I really see this as, the Fed, and they're calling it Fed now. And I don't know, Fed now, what about Fed never would be better, but it almost seems like the whole reason they're doing this is because crypto really has their number. And absent of crypto and blockchain, I doubt we'd be seeing these, innovations. Not that there's, it's like innovations on government, it's so, what do you guys think about the Fed Reserve, with their Fed now, or is this something that's on your guys' radar at all?
Yeah. So the thing that's happening, so Kingsley just asked a really interesting question, is why does every country seem to have a Federal Reserve? And I think the reason is that there's a kind of game theoretical sort of power vacuum that pulls them towards it, right? So if government A can hyperinflate its money to spend it now to build up a military infrastructure that can then conquer the neighbor, right? Then now everybody has to do something of the like in order to be able to hold ground and defend against people that do have this kind of power. And the problem with that is that it's an inflationary game. It's a monopoly over counterfeiting. And so this federal private, pseudo-private, sort of fascist kind of money systems, government money systems are in a race to deflate, but they also can't deflate too much, right? Because if there's all these games, right? There's these games on manufacturing investment, right? So where are the plants being built? Where's the factories being built? And that's something that brings up the economy of the GDP of the local economy and all these sort of economic markers. And then who's shipping to who and who's selling to who. There's all these power games between the states, right? One country can become a free state, but then if they're trading with a statist nation next door, that's going to influence them whether they like it or not. And so that's part of why all these games are being played. The hope with Bitcoin is that Bitcoin resets that stage by being very hard money, not soft, easy money that's being printed at will and sort of handed out in a kind of trickle-down effect. And so the bet with Bitcoin is that Bitcoin is going to become it's something that takes away everybody's power to create money out of thin air by being so great and so difficult to move as a currency system and as a store of value that people just end up having to have it in their reserves because it's probably going to go up because it's obviously better than all this sort of quick money that's losing its value every day with this crazy sort of inflation game. And eventually, governments will have to start thinking about, maybe thinking about changing their money ways, right? And I think that's what we're seeing. Like there's a market pressure that's now affecting governments or at least the Federal Reserves to the point where they're actually updating their systems. Is that enough? Can they save the dollar? Can they save fiat currencies? Historically speaking, they can't. Historically speaking, every fiat currency has a lifespan of about 40 years on average. So I don't expect that they can, but they can certainly push it a little bit further, maybe make it more efficient. Mexico's financial system is actually incredibly efficient, incredibly fast and easy to use, something that cannot be said for the United States. And this is one of the things that we're talking about in that article is that America's financial system is fractioned. It's a bunch of different silos that can't really talk to each other. You have PayPal, and to get that money into Vimeo, or not Vimeo, but that other sort of Vimish something app, right? It's very hard to move between silos of finance. In Mexico is a lot easier, right? And so we'll see if it makes it better. We're all better off. But at the end of the day, you're still using dollars, and and that's still sort of subject to the Federal Reserves and all these economic gains, right? So in the long term, I do think that Bitcoin has a great chance of changing that game and replacing, like eliminating that power vacuum. Yeah.
And let's remember that you know, when we're talking about the move away from cash, you know, it gets scary when you're talking about centralized authorities like the Federal Reserve, like the governments, being able to, now they don't, you know, they wouldn't even potentially even have to go to your bank. They can just stop your payments or freeze your funds from the comfort of, you know, some Federal Reserve building somewhere in the U.S. So, so yeah, I mean, that's, you know, really scary when we're talking about kind of the free flow of money and cross-border payments and all this, and just, you know, just being able to go to the grocery store and use your money. You don't want it to be part of the Federal Reserve's electronic surveillance platform.
Yeah, I mean, what's been going on, I mean, the game plan from day one was to basically have, you know, China's social credit system mixed with, you know, some sort of cashless digital currency like the FedNow system. So then that way, if you're not a good little, you know, tax-paying slave and a good little, you know, American, if you're dissing, you know, who's ever in charge, or you're a dissident, and they can say, hey, you know, for that dissension, we're going to, you know, ban your travel like they're doing right now in China, or we're going to we're going to turn you off, or we're going to tax you X%. Or what if we're going to have, you know, and this is, you know, something we've talked about quite a bit over here at WAM, was negative interest rates. And so now if all of your currency is digital and then they enact a negative interest rate, they are literally stealing your money while there's probably actual real inflation. So the real inflation might be, you know, 8%, and then they might be taking negative 2%. And so now you're actually losing 10% by keeping your money into this digital system. And they know that this is going to be, and my biggest fear with crypto is that you're going to have people who are going to be begging for some sort of government solution next time there's a financial crash that's going to mainly going to be engineered by the Fed to begin with. Whether, I don't think they're purposely trying to crash anything. I think right now they're doing everything they can just to keep themselves afloat, not to make any pun with Flote.app. But what the Fed's doing, I mean, there's no way out of what they're doing, and this would be a dream for them to have everybody be cashless. And now you are dissenting, and we can boom cut off. Because if people know that that there's actions to what they say, then they might not even say things. So when you see people like Ross Ulbricht, who has almost 200,000 signatures over at freeross.org, and that's people who are, a lot of people are probably scared to put their name down on that type of list, and yet, you know, in a world where everything is cashless, and probably even more people will be scared to put their name down on a list like that, or on a list, you know, to help out Kingsley's father. Which, a quick plug for your father. How can people? What website can they go to help your father? Because he's in a similar situation to Ross, not quite as bad. But if you want to give, you know, a quick briefing on
Yeah, my father's serving a 60-year sentence for a nonviolent drug crime from '93. So he's been,
and that's 6D, so not 6, just in case people.
Yeah, 6D. And so yeah, he's been in for over 25 years now, and it's ridiculous. So yeah, we have a petition, change.org. If you search Michael Edwards, it should pop up. Maybe we can include the URL.
Okay, yeah, very very nice. And luckily now, you know, there seems to be a lot of you know, change in attitude towards all this stuff. You know, even you know, some days Trump is, you know, better than others, and depending whatever he tweets, you know, in regards to you know, loosening up some of those laws. But, you know, as we're starting to wrap things up over here, got a couple more articles. One of them is, you know, dealing with all the central banks and you know, sort of things. Is we have the World Bank, which funny because the World Bank is more like a fund, whereas the International Monetary Fund is more like a bank, and the Federal Reserve isn't federal and doesn't reserve anything. So we've got all these word plays that mean nothing. But the World Bank sells $33.8 million more of its private Ethereum blockchain bonds. And so now you even have central banks that are the World Bank starting to use Ethereum and blockchain bonds. And so, you know, and a lot of where I see the innovation coming is, imagine if you, you know, well, imagine a world that there was actually interest rates. And so let's, you know, pretend that negative interest rates don't exist, because that just F's everything up. But let's say, you know, we're in normal situations where you're actually getting paid interest, and all of a sudden now, instead of getting paid quarterly, maybe now you can get paid monthly. But because of blockchain, maybe now you can get paid daily or hourly or minute or second. Maybe there's a constant little drip going into your account, and then people will pay a premium, would rather pay a premium to get their, money every second versus every day versus every month versus every quarter versus every year. And traditionally it would be very expensive and laborious and a lot of manual intensive labor in order to give people those payments. But through the blockchain and smart contracts, that can probably be done instantaneously. And then, kind of going along with that, we have Ethereum. Seems like there's some sort of fork going on. They're talking about, I don't know like a ton about this, but it sounds like pretty soon there's going to be some sort of fork where they want to, increase, the scaling. They've been talking about that probably for, forever. I see Juan over there laughing. I know Kingsley earlier was talking about how they keep promising the scaling and how they're going to switch from proof of work to proof of stake and how that's really going to work. But do you guys know anything about this Ethereum hard fork, or is this something we should just, table for next time?
I was laughing at a tweet about Craig Wright, but let's not give him any more attention than that.
Please.
I mean, I've been hearing about Ethereum fork to proof of stake forever, and I've also been hearing a lot of FUD and documented sort of attacks on proof of stake for a while. I can't say I'm following very closely, but it's not like if they do fork to proof of stake, there's going to be 3 Ethereums. Because there's a huge mining industry in mining Ethereum, and it's been a proof of work currency or network anyway for like 4 years now. So there's going to be 3 Ethereums if they do this. And I guess we'll see which was the dominant one. I mean, they kind of have to do something. The price is taking a slump, and people are obviously growingly frustrated with some of the technical challenges of Ethereum. Somebody said recently, something like, the pro Ethereum people say something like, Ethereum doesn't work right now, but it will work in 10 years. And then they'll say about Bitcoin works right now, but it won't work in 10 years. And I don't know. I guess we'll see. I'm not really paying much attention to Ethereum right now.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. Again, yeah, I keep seeing these headlines for Ethereum upgrades all the time, and typically, I mean, actually, I think every time, you can basically say that something's been delayed or something. There's going to be some sort of delay that's happening, or these upgrades are supposed to happen last year or 2 years ago. But at the end of the day, we just had like a Bitcoin meetup last night to celebrate this crypto company, Lolly. It's their first birthday or whatever, which is actually pretty cool. If people want to check it out, to earn Bitcoin for just shopping online. I'm not affiliated with the company at all, besides just helping throw their meetup. But anyway, where was I going with this?
So about the Ethereum forks and
yeah. So Ethereum. I completely lost my train of thought.
Well, I think you're talking about how they keep talking about it and never ends up coming to fruition, and it's just sort of like we'll believe it when we see it.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with it, but anyway, yeah. So now when I see headlines of Ethereum upgrades and stuff like that, I'm just like, but it is interesting. I mean, and Juan, maybe I don't know, because like I'm really trying to wrap my head around too how you can just really, basically have these miners put in all this time and effort and work for so long to power this network, and then basically give them the middle finger and say, okay, we're moving on now. It's just it's hard for me to kind of get over that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they have a sunk investment in infrastructure. They have maybe hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars invested in miners and graphic cards, or they'll probably be on graphics cards. I'm pretty sure there's ASICs for Ethereum now, so they're not going to be happy about it. Miners are fairly powerful in cryptocurrencies, and they're gonna bring their hashing power elsewhere if Ethereum forks them. The question is going to be, where is the community going to go? Where are the companies going to go? Where is whatever, like the apps are going to go? Obviously Ethereum Classic stayed proof of work, and that's been their play the whole time. And so maybe Ethereum Classic will get a pump, but I mean, if you look at the price of Ethereum's in the gutter right now compared to its historical highs.
Well,
so
Ethereum Classic has actually gone, according to this article, has been up 20%. So maybe
right.
From from the 22nd. Yeah, so yesterday. So
so that would be that would be the immediate thought.
Yeah, and thank you for that analysis. Because obviously the miners are not going to be very thrilled about this, or maybe they'll take their game and go somewhere else to a different another crypto. Hey, we don't want to have this happen again. But yeah, it's more FUD in the marketplace. But the last thing I want to bring up is crypto advocate Patrick Byrne resigns as CEO of Overstock.com. This is actually something where I'm not sure if you guys saw the initial interview from about 2 weeks ago that he did on Fox Business, but they brought him on there to talk about blockchain. But then they sort of bamboozled him, and the second he got on there, they started switching and basically calling him like a Russian agent. And then he starts kicking their ass up and down one side or the other with all this information that he has, and he starts saying hey, I've got basically information that could take down the deep state, and I've got this and that. And I'm thinking, holy crap. And then the Fox Business host is like, oh, let's go back to blockchain. And let's just stick to how you're going to mother F Wall Street, because we'd rather talk about that than how you're going to take down the deep state. And so actually Ernest Hancock and I had him play the entire thing on his show about a week and a half ago, even before this, because I saw the interview and I was like, holy crap, I sent it out to a bunch of people. And I'm like, this is such a bombshell interview, both on the deep state side of things and on the T0, with basically they're going to try to create this tokenized platform where let's say stocks or real estate or basically any asset can be tokenized. And then, instead of having to wait 3 days for it to settle, this would settle instantaneously, which is, they would call it in the industry, T+1 or T+3 would mean transaction plus 3 days, or transaction plus 1 day or 2 day. But T0 means transaction is instant or zero. And so I really commend what he's doing. And maybe what he's doing is trying to get a whole bunch of free publicity for T0 with this. But obviously, I really respect what he's doing, because it takes a lot of balls to have to, try to take on the deep state. I mean, he's taken down Goldman Sachs to some extent already before. That's the whole reason he got into this foray, is that he realized, hey, I'm being someone's naked short selling my stock. I'm a PhD math whiz from Harvard, not from Stanford, not me, but Patrick Byrne is. One of his main mentors is Warren Buffett. And so he realized that Goldman Sachs is naked short selling him, spent $33 or $34 million to win 35, basically, but he got all the discovery. He proved it. And so he's already won a case against Goldman Sachs. And then he realized, you know what, I want to make sure you guys can never do that again. So I'm going to create T0, which he was working on years ago. So, basically everything that he does, to me, I feel like as a true, sort of libertarian OG, that, there's not too many CEOs like him or willing to take the hit that he's willing to take. And I'm not sure if you guys saw the interview he gave either yesterday or 2 days ago when he actually resigned. I think it was yesterday, where, he started tearing up a little bit about what was going on. And for me, I highly recommend you guys check that out. Everybody listening and watching to this right now, because he does need our support. If you want to, what he said is the best way to support him is go buy a rug on Overstock, or go do, maybe go buy some Overstock, because he's still a big shareholder, or probably the biggest shareholder right now. And maybe look into T0. So not giving financial advice, but it is something I've interviewed one of their top guys, Joe Law. So I do have an interview with him that I did at the Crypto Invest Summit, which I ran into Kingsley over there as well. But yeah, so what's your guys' take on Patrick Byrne? Or are you guys familiar with all this news going on?
Yeah, I appreciate what he does for crypto, and I don't think he needs our support. I think he's probably doing all right.
He's a billionaire, yeah.
But honestly, I don't really know. Can you just give like the highlights? I know like what he had romantic relationship. I saw just the headlines, and I didn't really read into it that much. But I know just like being a business owner myself and having businesses before. I mean, I'm not sure why he was crying, but just for him to.
Well, he had to resign as CEO and give up his board seat on Overstock.com. In part because I guess concerns that somebody has about his interview. I haven't watched the interview. It sounds fascinating. Can't wait to watch it right after this.
He had to resign because of his interview?
I guess. I mean, I read the letter that he sent to the board members, and it was like, I went on this interview that I did. I had to speak. I said what I had to say for the good of this country and freedom or something like that. Right? It was very very well said. But as a consequence, I'm gonna have to kind of resign and give up my board seat. And the CEO of Medici is gonna take the spot as interim CEO. I guess it just put him in political hot waters, and he's already been attacked as a Russian agent because he slept with a quote unquote Russian agent. So I don't know. There's something's going on.
Does that mean Juan's a Russian agent as well? No, no.
I'm sleeping with a Russian agent.
No. So, yeah. So a little bit of the backstory is that there's this Russian Maria Butina or something like that. He met her at Freedom Fest in 2015. She was sort of a big time pro Second Amendment. I think she wanted to set up like an NRA counterpart. She didn't file, the right paperwork to be an agent over here, but she was pretty young girl. I mean, I don't know, like 25, 26, 27 years old, something like that. And so I think she somehow got involved with Patrick, and then Patrick then went to the FBI and was like, hey, I just want to let you know that I'm seeing this girl, but there's some things that aren't, basically he wanted to be on the up and up about it. And then they seemed like they didn't care. Then they came back to him or like, well, actually, we need your help and we need you to get back with it. Because I think he'd already kind of split things off, and they're like, well, hey, we need you to sort of rekindle things back up. So 27-year-old girl isn't going to want to rekindle things with a billionaire, especially, one that's trying to, get certain things happening in Russia. And it was Peter Strzok who was the one who he found out ordered him to do that. He didn't know what the name was until early last summer, but Peter Strzok was a big deep state agent, obviously within the FBI, but he was being used as a tool. And so when all this stuff with Maria Butina came out, all the information came from Patrick Byrne, but yet Patrick Byrne's name was never used. And he knows where all the bodies are buried because he knows that she's not some Russian agent. But then he was also smart because instead of just trying to make this all seem like a Trump thing, he was actually like, well, actually, they were spying on Hillary too, because I think he was trying to cover, maybe he wasn't trying to get suicided. The other smart thing he did was he told Warren Buffett a lot of the stuff that was going down, because Warren Buffett has been his mentor since he was 13, because his dad was working with Warren Buffett as well. And actually, I mean, I'll see if I can link this podcast as well, but when I was on Ernie's show and we talked about this pretty big in depth, probably about 25, 30 minutes, because Ernie is friends with Patrick Byrne, and he actually sent him a message right after the show and tried getting him on. So I know some of the inside baseball, not enough to get me suicided over here. I don't know a ton about what was going on, but basically he was he got caught up in this whole, Russia Gate stuff, even though, it's just some, basically, 27-year-old girl from Russia who liked the Second Amendment, which, a lot of, I'm sure, girls that come over from Russia, probably like freedom and Second Amendment, and sounds like my kind of girl who, is into the Second Amendment. But it's a shame to see him get caught up in that. And a little brain fart. What I wanted to say is he released the news for T0 on Ernie's show, actually, Declare Your Independence. So that breaking news actually came from Ernest Hancock on his show. That it's sort of like a thing towards the end of his show. And I'm like, and I immediately had light bulbs going off of, wow, if they can pull this off, this is like completely groundbreaking. So
Ernie always has like breaking stuff happening on his show. It's pretty wild just to hear. I mean, I don't actually know that much. Like, I've been on the show quite a bit, and I've seen him, throughout the Ron Paul days, but it's amazing to hear, especially on the crypto side, how many people he's had on, or how many people have started or announced things on his show.
Well, he had like Freedom from Patrick Byrne from like way back in the day, and I think he initially started interviewing him when he was taking down Goldman Sachs. Is how he got the relationship started. And then I was supposed to interview him at Nexus Earth 2 years ago, and right before the interview, frickin' Jesse Ventura asked to interview him. So obviously Jesse Ventura is a much bigger. Actually, he works for RT, so more Russian ties right there. Obviously, taking an interview from Jesse the Body Ventura is much more important than me. So I don't fault him at all for that. But he did tell me he owes me an interview, so maybe now I can strategically try to use it. Except I think I have his Overstock email, so I don't know if that still works or it's getting forwarded, or if I want to be labeled as a Russian agent. But now, we are probably coming up to about an hour or over an hour. And definitely appreciate my guests. And where can people find more about information? I know with Kingsley, guys, check out Flote, FLOTE.app. And I'm not sure what your name is on there. Is it Kingsley Edwards or / what's the best way for people to find more about what you've got going on?
Yeah, go to Floats, and my username is King on there. That's why we made it, just so I can have that. But
it was good to be King.
Awesome. But we're building I'm really excited right now. We're in the beginning stages of, really figuring out exactly how technically we're going to make floats decentralized in the future. So we have some pretty exciting announcements that will probably be coming public in the next couple weeks.
Maybe give some of the highlights about how it's like about the censorship resistant, how, the sort of motivation for creating it.
Yeah. So just following independent media for a while and seeing what the trend has been for, really for the last 10 years, but it's really starting to ramp up in the last couple of years with the banning of a bunch of independent journalists. Alex Jones, probably being one of the bigger ones, but really, a lot of people that have been censored or being banned are not even near the type of kind of conspiracy level or controversial level as Alex Jones. I mean, these are people just covering basic things, like even just filming without even saying anything at, Ford Fisher being one of those at Charlottesville, Emmy award-winning journalism that yet is still getting, I just read today, someone just shared a Ford Fisher video on Facebook and they got banned for 30 days. It's crazy. So yeah, we're basically just creating an alternative to I would say probably Facebook is as far as like what we're really, as far as feature set, what we're really looking to build in the future. And we have crypto fully integrated. We decided not to touch fiat because obviously fiat can be censored. So we have a nice Bitcoin wallet built in. We'll be supporting other cryptocurrencies, and check us out. We have a lot of exciting things in store in the near future.
Yeah, and I need to start checking that out more because I mean everything you guys right now are building on, whether it's Facebook or YouTube, you're building it on the man's platform. They're just going to take it down eventually. I mean, it only took me 2 months to get shadow banned on Facebook. I mean, right now on the screen I have what it looked like for me. I went from 0 subscribers to 30,000 within 2 months. I peaked at 1,200 subscribers. Then the very next day, after I had a fake news list go viral, I've been negative over the past 2 years, which now they don't let me go back to 2 years. So luckily I had at least one screen grab from it. I think I've got one somewhere else, but to go like how, and this is not about me, but they're stifling anyone who's not a communist right now on the platform. And I'm, calling out things on both sides of things, but all of a sudden, how do you go from 1,200 a day to 0 to negative overnight? And then, so all of a sudden when nobody knew me, I was having stuff go viral all the time. And then now that, I've obviously a lot more, well known than I was when I had no one on the page. And now if I stream out there, I get it reaches 90 people out of 32,000, reaches 90 people.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of fuckery going on in the behind the scenes. And even, something happened to me last year, which is kind of strange, where there was more and more stuff coming out about the censorship and stuff like that. And I posted a negative article or comments about Facebook. As soon as I posted that on Facebook or about Facebook on Facebook, my app crashed. I opened it back up and it's been completely buggy ever since. And I was like, well, this is crazy. Like, I'm not just thinking this up. Am I literally?
Well, first off, shame on you for having the Facebook app. I don't even have it in the phone.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Bad enough I've got Messenger because.
Right. Yeah. So. But then fast forward a couple months and Project Veritas releases another Facebook expose. And what do you know? An insider from Facebook said that they have been doing this weird bug for some people on their platform where it doesn't make it so they can't post or do any of this, but it just makes it so unfriendly and buggy to use that you just end up not wanting to use it. So it's like all these companies are doing these things that it seems like are definitely affecting their bottom line and will continue to affect it. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, before we go over to Juan real quick, I've got do have the article pulled up over here, and it's Facebook Insider Leaks Docs Explains Deboosting Troll Report and Political Targeting in Video Interview. But yeah, basically they just insert some sort of line code into your profile, and then poof, it's even worse than almost banning. Which sucks is when Alex Jones got kicked off, I decided to go offline for a month or two completely, where I took down my Facebook pages and didn't log on at all. And that was right when everybody got kicked off. I'm like, damn it, I wish I had just stayed on so I could have been cool and gotten kicked off, because now I'm in this weird nether world where I can't reach anybody, but I just look like a little biatch having to complain about this. But I'm not complaining. We're using other platforms. I'm using Facebook to tell you to get off of Facebook, but now without monopolizing more of the time, give it over to Juan and he can tell us where we can find him and everything going on with BYO Vault and Phone HODL.
Sure. Well, I just want to say Flote is really exciting. I've been paying attention to the social media marketplace ever since Alex Jones got kicked out, and even before, it was pretty clear that it was building up. And the fact that they could take down Alex Jones means that they can take down anybody. He was bigger than most of mainstream media combined. and effectively probably had Trump elected. Like, as far as, you know, he was the biggest sort of media supporter of Trump. So if they can take him down, they could take down anybody on their platforms. But this is not done through legal means. This is done through corporate collusion, right? There's a lot of antitrust claims being made against them, and there's a couple lawsuits going on against the big sort of social networks. So I think it's going to be really interesting. And yeah, I really want market competition to thrive here. I think Flote is really exciting. I really like that it has like a Bitcoin wallet built in, and that it's sort of integrated into the social network. I think social networks plus Bitcoin wallets, sort of plus cryptocurrency, that's going to be a big deal, especially Bitcoin, because it's the best. Bitcoin first kind of guy. But, you know, whatever works, right? And I think, you know, obviously cryptocurrency and social media, that's where things are going, right? Facebook is launching Libra and so on. So I really like Flote. I think it's great. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys build and keep developing, and very, very exciting. Definitely check it out.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you that I think Alex Jones, whether you love him or hate him, was a key instrument in getting Donald Trump elected. And if they can do it to him, they can do it to everybody. And actually, I went from I've got it pulled up right now. I went from May 8th. I didn't make a post in my first. So I went like basically 3 months without where I basically was not blacked out from drinking or anything, but I just decided to go dark and not make any posts because I was doing other stuff, was busy. But I decided to basically take a hiatus from doing my podcast. My hiatus coming back was actually to talk about Alex Jones getting kicked off, because I thought that was such a watershed moment for me. And I just wish that I have spot checked him recently, and I have actually heard him say, I've got some people in my ear who are telling me that blockchain could be a way to help stop censorship. But I think that's been his biggest weakness. And unfortunately, I was following him before I started listening more to Ernie. But, you know, once Trump got elected, it just became, you know, the 24/7 Trump circle jerk. And that wasn't, and all of a sudden it became, you know, how much we love the police and all this other stuff. And so I really stopped listening. But, you know, he did help wake me up to a certain extent. I mean, I already found out about the Fed and all that other stuff, and saw that he was talking about the Fed and talking about the police state. And now, you know, he's, you know, talking about why we need lower interest rates. And, you know, it's like, oh, well, no, we can't do anything about the debt, and we shouldn't even try now. And so, and basically the Tea Party is dead. The small government Republicans that I think were never alive to begin with, they're completely dead at this point. And one thing that isn't quite dead is Facebook, but we got guys like Kingsley who are helping us out. Got guys like Juan who are also innovating, but definitely appreciate both of you guys joining us today. Make sure to check us out on all different platforms. Make sure you guys definitely check out Flote and the phone HODL. But for now,
yeah, let me give a little plug before we go. So you can find me. You can find me on Twitter, Juan is Galt, or Juan Galt. I'm pretty much on every social media. And yeah, BeWayAbout.com. We're teaching people how to protect their crypto and how to protect their crypto assets while they use them online, how to protect your digital identity. There's a lot of cyber security shenanigans going on, and a lot of SIM card hacks, and a lot of different attacks that are taking down private citizens. So we're trying to help people sort of protect their assets. And then phone HODL, just protect your phone, which let's face it, we have all merged with the machine to some degree. So if you lose your phone, it takes a serious blow. So anyway, that's what I'm up to. Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is a great show. Really enjoyed it.
No, thank you for being here. And just so you guys know, that's Juan Galt. So it's sort of like John Galt from Ayn Rand, but this is Juan Galt.
Spanish version.
The Spanish version. But no, thank you guys for having me. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.
A good friend of mine, Tim Picciott, he's a financial advisor at Scott's. You'd be able to bring the crypto into the system. How would you be able to do a foundation of trust, of this, of that, and so on? And he's been spending months on how you can take your crypto and not pay capital gains on it, not have taxes on it. I'm going, man, you need to talk to Tim, okay?
Hey, this is Tim Picciott, the Liberty Advisor. Head to BitcoinEarlyAdopter.com to download our guide and the 10 things you need to know when sitting on massive crypto capital gains. That's BitcoinEarlyAdopter.com.
Ross Ulbricht is serving a double life sentence without parole for all nonviolent charges for creating a website. Please help free this peaceful man. Go to freeross.org and sign and share the petition.